I'm here with Paul Miller, who was at the Metropolitan Republican Club the evening that Antifa disrupted the speech by Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys. Now, Paul, thank you so much for joining One American News.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
You have a very unique story about what happened that night. Tell us about when you first went down to the club that night, what you saw.
It was just a crowd of about maybe 70, 80 Antifa members screaming and chanting and wild. I was turned away from the event, and they sold out. So me and a friend, we was walking down the street and coming up 84th Street when we saw Antifa coming towards us. And as they were coming towards us, I knew that they were after us. I handed my phone to my friend. I told her to run. She said, "What about you?" I said, "Don't worry about me, you run." And she took off running down the street. 5 of them started to engage us. They tried to grab her. I grabbed him, pulled him back into the fight. I'm fighting with them. As I was fighting with them, I dropped my bag, and 5 more of them came. These are in black masks, in black clothes. They looked so scary, dangerous.
Oh, keep playing it, goddammit! I put it back on. Whoa, hello, beautiful. It's not often that I am speechless. Do you have a boyfriend?
I have a husband and many children.
God bless your family.
What do you think about communism?
Communism? I think anyone who practices or preaches communism should be lined up against the wall and shot.
I think communism is the ideology of the future.
I think that you should be lined up against the wall and you should be shot.
You might be a little bit racist.
Me? I'm the Riddler. I'm not racist. I'm not here to solve the mother of all riddles. Riddle me this before you go. I am loud and obnoxious. I like music that rhymes. I'm a fraction of the population, but commit half the crimes. Who am I? What the f***? What are you?
A person?
A person? Are you a guy or a girl?
I'm a girl.
Really?
Yes.
Are you like a lesbian?
No, I'm non-binary.
Oh.
And first of all, who are you? First of all, you look black.
How about the fact that black people have been burning down the country for the past few months? How about that? Oh, do they? Is that why you guys burn it down or rip down monuments?
Yes, we built them. We have the right.
Where did you guys build anything? How did you guys do that?
What do you mean, how do we do?
Where did you build them? How old are you, kid?
12.
Sweetheart, are you a girl?
Yeah.
Sweetie, what are you doing on here?
It's a prank.
A prank? What kind of prank?
I don't know to see who's on here.
Yeah, but there's a lot of weirdos on here, sweetheart.
Okay, I'll get off.
Yeah, you should probably get off. Why don't you go do homework or something, no?
I did my homework.
Yeah? Alright, well just get off of here, because it's not good, huh?
Okay.
Alright, sweetheart.
Many of you viewing this video will be entrenched, or at the very least have a general greater understanding of internet culture and the wider yet somehow pervasive ongoing culture conflict that terms such as red-pilled and black-pilled originate from. The term black pill itself is a rather insidious term, a charming phrase labeling oneself as possessing a state of being with an attitude developed through usually a flurry or series of events in one's life that led them to become, well, miserable. A glass that is now half empty rather than half full. An evolution, or rather devolution, into misanthropy. Taking the black pill, or in this particular case having it thrust upon you, may lead you to become reclusive, antisocial. You may very well become a pariah, a shadow of your former self. You ascertain, formulate and cement the understanding that society, well, society, there's no hope for it. You have lost all hope and now view the world through the thick end of a lager bottle. How does this happen exactly? Well, we can use the term black pill in many different scenarios. The vast majority of people will have heard the term through the grace of the mainstream media, the established medium through which we are spoon-fed the boomer's eye view of the grand threats that inhabit the dark corners of the internet. You know, like Reddit. I may joke, but in the media's case, I'm being serious. They have associated such terms with incels, and what they actually mean is single young white men. Of course, there are those that exist on the fringes crying about Chads and Stacys and how life has effectively castrated them, making them ugly creatures incapable of receiving love or what they perceive to be healthy romance, which of course it isn't. But the term black-pilled can be applied in alternative scenarios. For example, let's say, like me, you have taken a keen interest in American politics in the last 5 or 6 years. No matter your side, no matter your position, left, right, liberal, conservative, or something in the middle, or even on the fringe, you have become disillusioned with our political overlord masters, the media and its representation of people like Bernie Sanders or even former President Donald Trump. You may have come to despise the DNC or the GOP, the Clintons, or even CNN. Even Twitter and YouTube's censorious behavior may have led you down a path of misery, and you may have completely lost faith in the systems that hold up the very fabric of society. Another example may be the, well, you know, the COOF and its mandates, regardless of the country in which you reside. With lockdowns, one would imagine a catastrophic increase in divorce and worse over the last 2 years or so. As such, you view life as not worth it. You possess zero faith that things will get better. You have a solid and rigid view on the big personalities of big tech, the politosphere, and special interest groups that seem to move, shift, and pull the strings from behind the veil of charity and apparent discourse intended to ensure a healthier and more positive society. You may be locked into these feelings, feel that your rights have been eroded, feel as if life is more than unfair, or you have become the representation of entropy, and that is the gentleman you have just bore witness to, ladies and gentlemen. Gypsy Crusader, real name Paul Miller, currently serving 41 months in prison for a firearms possession charge. Now, that may have seemed a really long-winded method of getting to the point, and I would agree with you on that. That said, however, this video, the tragic story of Gypsy Crusader making the monster, I have to do this. You cannot understand his story unless you understand the culture war, internet slang, and terminology that pertains to the aforementioned, almost memed out of existence phrase. The Proud Boys, Antifa, the ADL, Black Pill, Red Pill, Alt Tech, and so on. And for that, I make no apologies. So, who is Gypsy Crusader? Who is this real-life internet joker? Who is this 2015 YouTube tier troll? Well, later in this video, I'll give you a full breakdown of Gypsy Crusader and the man behind the mask. But for now, I will give you a brief oversight of why I have chosen this enigma as a topic to cover. The gentleman you just witnessed dressed as the Riddler or Joker, doing and saying some pretty spicy things, once graced YouTube, and he went by the moniker or handle Gypsy Crusader. Real name Paul Miller. Now, he is someone whose face, planted in the thumbnail, screaming out to me from my recommended, immediately gained my attention. I had personally been binging and perusing Sunny V2's YouTube channel. Sunny V2 is a mini documentary channel that's been doing really well recently, and of course it was recommended to me. It was his short 12-minute video that I sat there and watched about Paul, and I found myself being more hungry for more information on him. After all, this was only a short video that very quickly glossed over what I felt was a deeply nuanced and serious story, how one moment ruined a man's life. But not only that, it was a story resulting in doxing, harassment of his family, not just himself, some black pills being swallowed, and of course, his subsequent arrests and sentencing, something that was only marred further by trolls. And such is the nature of the autist whose ears you have been graced by. I fell down the rabbit hole that is Gypsy Crusader. It started with Omegle, video clips no longer than 30 seconds of him engaging in what I personally felt as YouTube 2015 era trolling. Was it spicy? Yes, of course it was. Was it exceptionally offensive? Well, that depends on one's perspective and tolerance for such things. I watched as a man dressed as the Joker bounced from Omegle video call to Omegle video call, roasting each person he sat before. If they were black, well, the N-word and some of your garden variety alt-right memes would be thrown around. If they were Asian, well, you got some Asian jokes and so on. If a conversation ensued and you just happened to be a furry or a communist or even both, well, you were going to be roasted harder than anyone else. That said, however, if it was a child or children, you would be shocked by his sudden 180 flip, as suddenly their race and ethnicity no longer mattered, and you would see the father within Paul, the very wholesome side of his being, exerted as he would tell them off for being up late or even just have a pleasant yet adorable conversation with them. I personally decided to send a letter to Paul, who currently resides in prison. He accepted my request for a communication via email dialogue to be opened, and we had a chat. I will be reading our exchange later on in this video, but for now, please allow me to summarize who Paul Miller is. Allow me to explain very briefly before diving into who the Gypsy Crusader was. Paul Miller, the man whose life that would be flipped in just one bad day to become the monster they wanted him to be, Gypsy Crusader, is a former independent journalist and former martial arts fighter who, on an evening in 2018, had attempted to attend a Proud Boys event to effectively report on the Republican Club event. He wasn't a part of the Proud Boys, and he wasn't in possession of a ticket either, and thus was subsequently turned away. If you're someone who keeps their ears to the ground when it comes to American politics in particular, then you likely would have an idea of who the Proud Boys are, and would also know that anything involving them would inevitably involve Antifa. Antifa have congregated outside, vandalizing the building in the process. Once declined entry, Paul attempted to walk away and unfortunately was beset upon by a few Antifa members who tried to fight Paul. Some Proud Boy members witnessing the attack came to Paul's aid and helped fight them off. Antifa, however, rather salty on their loss, decided that they wouldn't stop there. They ended up doxing Paul, calling his workplace, getting him fired, doxed and harassed his family, and made life pretty untenable for Paul. They even went as far as misreporting Paul to the FBI, who then would come to his house later on. Not really knowing what to do, he took himself to YouTube, and thus the Gypsy Crusader persona was born. His content, his videos, his streams were an attempt to fight back against those that decided they were going to ruin his life. Now, despite his growth on the platform and his growing popularity, especially in the constant and persisting political climate that we exist in today, he would later eventually be banned from YouTube and many other social platforms along the way due to the nature of his content. He would eventually be relegated, cast out, and forced to use websites like Bitwave. The attention he brought to himself meant that the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, would get wind of Paul and his Gypsy Crusader persona. Believing him to be dangerous, they contacted the FBI, who then raided and searched Paul's home, and in the trunk of his car they found firearms. Weapons he was not allowed to be in possession of due to his criminal record. He was arrested and sentenced in 2021, and the rest, as they say, is history. Now, I'm very obviously glossing over a lot here. I wanted to give a brief synopsis as to who Paul is, who his persona was, and what led a champion martial artist and independent journalist down the road of the black pill. Paul, Gypsy Crusader, the real-life internet joker, cannot be spoken about without explaining several other polarizing topics in order to truly understand the gravity of his story. I wanted to create a true, or at least the best neutral telling of his story, as I found other mini-doc style videos were either biased, lacking in information, possessed far too much identity, political insertion, completely misunderstood Paul's entire story, or just focused too heavily on the negatives. And whilst I'm sure I will no doubt be accused of defending him, I told the man himself as much When speaking directly to him, I am not defending him, I am not attempting to justify his actions. I am, however, trying to do him proper justice. Why? Well, that's a story for the pinned comment, if you are, of course, so inclined. Anyway, there is only one way to do this properly, and that's by telling his entire story from start to present as best as I can. So as always, let's get into it. Before the trolling, before the omegle streams, before screaming the N-word to end each interaction with unsuspecting omegle users, before the Black Pill and the Joker and Riddler outfits, there was no Gypsy Crusader. Only the very normal Paul Miller, hailing from New York. A US champion Muay Thai fighter, trainer and coach, and of course an independent journalist with a flair for activism. But we are getting ahead of ourselves, so let's go further back. Born on the 11th of August 1988 in the state of New York to a Mexican mother and Romani-descended father, hence the name Gypsy Crusader, one would imagine, not a great deal is known about Paul's early life, but we do know that he started training in Muay Thai from 2008 and fought to success, becoming the regional light heavyweight champion and US national champion in the World Kickboxing Association. Unfortunately, a car accident cut his professional fighting career short, but he maintained himself within the scene by becoming a coach and trainer. 2 years prior to Paul taking a strong interest in Muay Thai, 2006, at the age of 18, a young Paul found himself in hot water with an aggravated assault charge. No jail time was served. A year later, Paul would find himself on the wrong side of the law again, netting himself a possession of drugs and intent to sell charge, which resulted in 180 days in jail and 4 years probation. The charge for illegally possessing a gun wasn't until 2018, but didn't charge him until the 25th of Feb. By the time President Trump took office, Paul had decided to become an independent journalist, making activism very much a part of that personal brand, going as far as walking into the CNN office in New York with a megaphone, filming himself calling them out for fake news and propaganda.
CNN is fake news. They engaged in propaganda for 2 years against the American people. They need to be shut down. This place is a joke. And I'm here to tell you that you owe the American people an apology. I'm sorry, officer. I will leave. I will leave right now. I'll leave right now, officer. There's no...
You don't know what's going on, so why won't you show your face if you don't know what's going on?
Excuse me.
You don't know what's going on? What about all the women that have been trafficked through here?
I don't know.
What about all the women? What about Epstein Island?
Can you please? You're harassing me.
I'm just asking you
You're
questions,
harassing
ma'am.
me.
I'm just asking you
You are
questions.
harassing me.
I just want to know about
You
the
are
human
harassing
trafficking.
me.
I just want to know about the human trafficking, ma'am.
You're harassing me.
All right, guys, so we are here. We are outside Instagram Studios. I'm going to walk in. I already walked in earlier. I asked if they would let me take a tour. They said no. So let's go ask them. Let's go ask them. Do you guys want to talk about the what's it called, the banning of Republicans across the internet?
I don't want to talk.
You guys don't want to talk about any of that? Do you guys want to talk about any of that? For violating everyone's First Amendment? Do you guys care about that you're working for a company that's violating the First Amendment for I don't want any trouble. I just wanted to ask my questions, and that's it. That's it. I don't want any trouble. I understand. So they
2 more seconds, you're going to be locked up.
No, I understand. I'm leaving. I'm just asking. So do you agree with them banning the First Amendment? Do you agree with it? No?
Let's go.
It's a fascist company, sir. You don't think so? Okay. You don't think so? You don't think that's right? Do you think it's right?
Have a good night.
Can I just ask, do you don't think it's right?
Have a good night.
Nothing? Nothing?
He would also do this at the offices of social media corporation offices too, such as Instagram and Facebook, pretty much protesting the perceived ongoing censorship of right/conservative views and opinions on social media. He would even confront the likes of Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, whilst his actions would certainly seem to be somewhat on the nose or even pushing the envelope, this kind of activist behavior was quite commonplace, especially amongst those types of journalists, regardless of left versus right stances, that find themselves on the ground acting with aggressive confrontational tactics. Paul described himself as a radical conservative, and even in his emails to me personally, he stated that he wanted to bring awareness to the issues and problems he saw within the mainstream media and Silicon Valley establishments and institutions. On the evening of the 12th of October 2018 is when Paul would reach the very life-changing moment that led to this video's creation in the first place. Paul, attempting to attend a speech at a Proud Boys event held by their founder Gavin McInnes at the Metropolitan Republican Club in New York, had been turned away at the door due to not being in possession of a ticket. He was attacked by Antifa members when trying to leave. It was after this incident that Paul found himself on the radar of Antifa members, still holding a grudge over the altercation. They proceeded to dox him, harass him, and managed to get him fired from his journalist job. And it was this event, this one moment of being surrounded by Antifa members threatening his and his female friend's person, that would stand testament as the one bad day needed to begin the transformation and subsequent radicalization of Paul Miller. And so he would become Gypsy Crusader.
I'm here with Paul Miller, who was at the Metropolitan Republican Club the evening that Antifa disrupted the speech by Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys. Now, Paul, thank you so much for joining One American News.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
You have a very unique story about what happened that night. Tell us about when you first went down to the club that night, what you saw.
It was just a crowd of about maybe 70, 80 Antifa members screaming and chanting and wild like animals out front of the Republican Club. I was turned away from the event, and they sold out. So me and a friend, we was walking down the street and coming up 84th Street when we saw Antifa coming towards us. And as they were coming towards us, I knew that they were after us. I handed my phone to my friend. I told her to run. She said, "What about you?" I said, "Don't worry about me, you run." And she took off running down the street. 5 of them started to engage us. They tried to grab her. I grabbed him, pulled him back into the fight. I'm fighting with them. As I was fighting with them, I dropped my bag, and 5 more of them came. These are in black masks, in black clothes. They looked so scary, dangerous.
Now, before we continue along the timeline of chaos and madness, let me indulge you in the aforementioned groups, Antifa and the Proud Boys, along with the political climate responsible for their continued clashing on the streets of America. Even to this day, Antifa, standing for anti-fascist, is a much older group originally forming in Europe during the rise of fascism in the early 20th century. Known primarily for their black bloc, the youthful quote-unquote street soldiers that protest, riot and attack quote-unquote fascist organizations and individuals. There are groups of Antifa in many countries, several in Europe, the UK and of course America. Some might describe them as a street movement protest group, or from their detractors, outright fascists themselves. Their prevalence in America became quite prominent prior to and post-election of Donald Trump. Now, on what many believe to be the opposite side of the political spectrum, exists the Proud Boys, a group formed in 2016 by Gavin McInnes, a Canadian but UK-born political commentator who founded Vice in '94. He worked for Rebel Media and has pretty much been deplatformed completely, but still runs a website where he streams from called Censored TV. In fact, just off topic, I recently watched Gavin have a pleasant conversation with Ghazi Kodzo, aka Black Hitler. Truly bizarre stuff, guys. Funny, but strange.
Girl! Hey, Amika. Hey, Gavin. Hey, son.
Woohoo! Aquaba, y'all.
I'm on your side. Gavin.
I think you're wrong for your
I just real quick. Gavin, first, I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud of what you have built. I'm proud of the work you have done. I know it's not easy being a leader, especially against this this Fauci empire.
Anyway, if you search the Proud Boys on YouTube or Google, you'll be bombarded with hundreds, if not thousands, of articles and videos that will tell you that the Proud Boys are a far-right hate group, the defenders of Trump, involved in the infamous January 6th incident at the Capitol. Originally formed as a joke, the Proud Boys would likely describe themselves as patriots, promoting Western values and standing against ideologies like communism, and identifying themselves as proud Western chauvinists. Now, as I'm sure many of you still watching will remember, that 2015 and 2016, whether online or very much in the real world, the political climate, especially in the United States, had begun to heat up rather drastically. The lines of ideology blurred and association through perceived lines in the sand were drawn. Even non-participating members of the public would often find themselves thrust into the now very polarizing tension felt in comment sections across YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and of course at political rallies. Passions ran exceedingly high, especially if it involved Donald Trump. If you came out publicly supporting Trump or even Hillary, you were certainly going to be met with aggressive confrontation. Since which, what we might now refer to as cancel culture, wherein even non-public figures can be dogpiled, doxed, swatted, and harassed for giving a controversial or even a benign opinion in public or even on the Twitter sphere, has become rather prevalent. The mudslinging throughout the media, regardless of who it was aimed at, contributed towards the rhetoric, and the rhetoric would trickle down, affecting the very fabric of families. Who you chose to vote for, who you chose to support, could have meant your entire family now ostracizing you, tearing family and friendships apart. And so we come back to Paul. Now that you understand the groups involved and the climate at the time, we can continue. At first, Paul decided to continue his radical conservatism and journalism, taking to the streets just as he did before, but this time uploading his reporting to his YouTube channel. It wasn't until he reported on the riots in response to the murder of George Floyd, and this would act as the final nail in the coffin for his subsequent radicalization. His reporting on the George Floyd protests and riots landed him back on the radar of Antifa as well as Black Lives Matter and the Anti-Defamation League. This resulted in further being doxxed again, receiving tons of death threats, having his family called and harassed, and as well as losing his position as a Muay Thai coach and trainer. After having been targeted by these groups, he moved to Florida. As you may have noticed throughout the Gypsy Crusader timeline, he has changed and evolved over time, becoming more extreme, doing more and more outrageous things, saying and shouting more and more far-right racist tropes and slogans at anyone willing to listen. He begins to promote ideas such as race wars, civil wars, Holocaust denial, anti-Semitism, pro-white slogans, alt-right memes, all whilst growing an adoring audience who love his trolling of random Omegle users and ideological rants. But you may be wondering how Gypsy Crusader actually felt about his online presence and his regular performances. Well, let's hear it from his own mouth, shall we?
Yeah, I'm real, you Of course I'm real. What do you think?
What? Dude, I know that has to be like the biggest ego boost when you see yourself on like a meme.
No, it's not. No, it's not at all. Not at all.
Why not?
I don't like
Why
it.
not?
No, because no. It's not.
Why not?
Because I didn't want this.
Why didn't you want this?
You think I wanted this?
Why didn't you want this, dude? You're hilarious.
No.
You're the Joker, man.
No, son. We're all just one bad day from being just like me. I would never want anybody to go through what I have went through to get to this point. I would never want anybody to suffer the way that I have. It's not fun to get calls from home and you don't know if the FBI or a brick has been thrown through the window. You don't know if the you don't know.
Is that what happened?
You don't know if the FBI is going to come knocking on your family's door once again and harass them. You get calls from back home. Your mother telling you that she's getting harassed by random strangers, telling her that they're going to kill her.
Your mom?
Your father calls you and tells you that your mother's crying. She's scared.
My mother's crying.
Your mother's worried.
Okay.
It's never something that I would want this to happen to anybody. People think that it's a big joke. There's a lot of people that think that. There's people that think that, like, oh, I'm some kind of fed. They think that I'm some kind of plant, some kind of actor, some kind of person who came out of nowhere. It's not the truth. I was a conservative for a long time. I was a conservative Trump supporter. I wasn't racist. I would never say I would never say gas the I didn't have a problem with the never nothing. I was such a normal I was such a normal guy. I think back on it. When I was fighting, like when I was training, when I was fighting, I didn't think about none of this shit. I didn't care about any of it. I just cared about fighting and training and trying to be a champion and all this other shit. And then when I became a journalist, I just wanted to inform people. That was it. I just wanted to keep people informed and try to do the news the right way and all this other. I'm sorry. You guys are. Okay? My life was destroyed. Okay? My life, you don't even know. All right? You don't even know. I'm serious about that. My parents call me sometimes. My parents used to call me, right? Go fuck yourself. You see stupid shit like this? Go drop dead. You go back to whatever shithole you came from. Let's see you come out from your let's see you come out from that fucking profile, show your face and say something. But you won't because you're a piece of garbage. I'm not afraid of you people. Like, you think I'm afraid of you, you think I'm not. I'm not afraid of you people. But it's the truth. My life was destroyed from just trying to be a normal journalist. Right? It's been a wild ride, but I didn't want to do this. You know, I never want anybody to think that, like that kid said, where he's like, oh, you must get an ego boost when you see a meme of yourself. I don't. I don't get an ego boost. You know? I don't even really like it. It's weird. It's like living in a fishbowl. It's like living in a fishbowl, right? Everybody kind of knows who I am. Everybody sees me. Everybody likes my stuff, which is great. I love you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. But I don't know anybody. I don't know them. So it just feels weird.
Now, whilst alt-right is certainly an umbrella term, there are constants among them. You can have a straight-up neo-Nazi type of alt-righter, and you can also have a socialist, borderline communist alt-righter. Because guys, remember, fascism is a separate ideology altogether. Just as there are several different types of nationalism, it is the same with fascists and alt-right people. But alt-righters do share some common goals and ideas. The JQ, the Jewish question, the concept that the Jews run the world through means of money and media, and two others, race and IQ, the idea that race is real and thus your IQ is tied to your race, coinciding with low IQ and proclivity to commit acts of violence or violent crime. This being the justifier for the final shared trope among them, ethno-state establishment. Which the idea is a bit silly, as I have witnessed purity testing among these people and among those that identify as such, and once upon a time supported Gypsy. Anyway, I digress. As one might imagine by now, after having lost his jobs, his dreams to become an independent journalist, a coach, a trainer, and subsequently having to move to Florida in late October 2020, Gypsy hit his low. Now, when I spoke to him via email, he hadn't actually heard the term black pill before, and he did actually disagree with me that he was of this particular mindset. That said, his actions, his ideals at the time do tend to counter this. I could be wrong, but when one has everything stripped from him and is labeled a monster, and also fell down a rabbit hole of radicalization, I mean, I personally disagree here. That said, when I did speak to him via the prison email system, he did seem to be of a very, very high spirit, so perhaps this isn't a constant. Anyway, the harassment didn't end there, as Gypsy continued his online activities as an Omegle troll and promoter of some pretty extreme ideas. The FBI were called to his house too. In 2020, the FBI were called to his parents' house, trying to reach Paul. He had made some anti-protest statements online and proposed an open carry rally, all in regard to the COOF mandates.
Trying to reach Paul Miller.
What is it?
Looking for a Paul Miller.
He's not there today. He'll be there maybe tomorrow. What is it in reference to?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
What is in reference to, sir? I'm his mom.
Okay, it's the police department. We need to speak to him.
All right. Well, he'll be home tomorrow if you want to call him or come down. Is that okay?
Okay.
What priest? Where is this? New Brunswick? North Brunswick? Where is this at?
It's actually we're with the FBI, ma'am.
Oh, FBI. All right. Well, he'll be there tomorrow at about 12 o'clock if you want. Wait a second. One second. My husband's on.
Hello? Is this Paul? No, I'm his father. Okay. Sir? Yep, we need to speak to Paul. Okay, I can arrange that. Where is he now? I understand that either he took a trip to the shore last night or he's on his way back with his friends. But I will definitely get him in touch with you. Okay. I worked with the FBI a couple of times before out of the Newark office. Okay. All right. The reason I say that, as you can see the address where you're at, it says tarot card readings. Right. So sometimes when the Newark office had, I won't say gypsy because that's a racial epithet, but when they have issues with the Romani people, they used to get in touch with me.
All this said, however, with Gypsy Crusader, it wasn't all negative, it wasn't all trolling, N-word this, Jew that, and so on. There were, at times, and I do find this very interesting, that not only the media, but most other YouTubers that have covered and made their own docu-style videos about Gypsy Crusader seem to completely leave out that Paul even dressed up as the right-wing Joker or Riddler when matched up on Omegle with kids. We saw a very different man altogether. I have to say, personally, that what I'm about to show you is disgustingly wholesome. Watch.
Call of Duty?
Do I play Call of Duty? No.
What do you play?
I haven't played video games in some time now. I've been kind of busy with work.
I don't play much video games.
No?
Like, I have a Nintendo Switch. I played plenty of games on there, but ever since I got this a couple of days ago, that's all my mind has been on.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really good. I'm proud of you. You should be proud of yourself, man. A lot of kids don't do that, learning how to play an instrument nowadays. It's good for you.
I prefer my favorite hobbies to do: play guitar, run cross country and track, and be outside.
God bless you, man. You give me hope for the future. You be safe, all right?
Hi! Holy crap, that's hot. Oh my god, I love you.
You guys are a little too young for that. But what do you think of the Jews?
I don't really... really care.
How old are you two?
13.
Oh, you're too young for this conversation. All right,
That
girls.
looks really cool.
Thank you. You want to get a picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
That looks scary. This is the best thing I've seen on this app. Yes. Other than, like, everybody else is pedophiles. Bye.
Yeah, I know. Good night, girls. Be safe on here.
We will. Bye.
Trump, I'm Australian, Trump.
What's that?
What?
What'd you say? I couldn't hear you before.
I have tics, so I'd be... Trump, I'm Australian.
Oh, do you have like do you have one? Are you like, you have like a tick?
Yeah.
Oh my God, are you all right? Was you like born?
Yeah, I'm totally fine.
Yeah? Do you take anything for it? Do they take anything for it?
Yeah, no, I have stuff. Trump.
Yeah, I hear, and I'm just saying, I heard that the CBD oil. You ever heard of it? Like the marijuana oil?
Yeah.
I heard that helps it.
Oh. Maybe I'll try Trump.
I'm serious. No, all jokes aside, it's like you get it's like a little oil, right? And you put like 2 drops, and then it just kind of calms you down.
Oh yeah, I can calm myself down.
Yeah.
Because when I'm nervous, I take a lot. Like, it's not even that bad.
All right.
This is like crazy. Oh,
Yeah?
I'm Australian.
All right, sweetheart. You have a good day, okay?
Me too.
Nothing.
Meow.
How about are you selling drugs today?
No.
No. Are we doing our homework today?
No.
No. No homework today? Just being bad?
It's school break.
It's school break?
Yeah.
All right.
That means we have a few months off.
All right. Well, you guys be careful, all right? Don't be bad, all right?
We're not bad.
All right, guys. Be careful, all right? Little boy, have you been a good boy this year?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
That's good. Did you listen to your family? Listen to your parents?
Yes.
Did you do all your schoolwork?
Yes.
That's good. When Christmas morning comes, you check under the tree and your presents will be there. Merry Christmas. God bless you.
It's like, hi.
Where are your parents? Where are your parents? Go get your Mom, Dad! Mom, Dad!
No, stop!
Mom and Dad! Get off of here, guys. Guys, listen to me right now. Seriously, you need to get off of here right now. Shut this off immediately. Shut it off. Because, guys, it's dangerous on here. There's weird people on here, guys. Get off of here, seriously. Where are your parents? Where are your parents, dude?
Now, just prior to Gypsy Crusader moving to Florida in early October 2020, that is when the Anti-Defamation League's COE, Center of Extremism, took notice of him. Now, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, similar to the Southern Poverty Law Center, they are a charity that specializes in identifying and spreading awareness of what they believe to be extremism. They prioritize and specialize in cases of anti-Semitism and quote-unquote educate others in quote-unquote hate speech, extremism, and even touch on cyberbullying. Their staff work with members of the public, law enforcement, and multi-agency federal government organizations to disseminate intelligence between these various groups. The ADL, just like the SPLC, is a group that receives a hefty amount of very harsh criticism, mainly for their moving of the goalposts when it comes to the definitions of terms such as racism. You may remember PewDiePie had his own controversy with the ADL when he chose them as a charity post-Christchurch, and then was subsequently absolutely hammered by his own fan base and creators alike for supporting an organization which many believe to be anti-free speech, anti-freedom, and straight up interfering with American policy and citizenry from Israel. Have your opinions on them, guys. They are certainly a controversial and at times polarizing organization based in the US. Anyway, the ADL took notice of Paul and started monitoring his online activities. Concerned by his rhetoric that he used online that they describe as quote-unquote radical and violent rhetoric, as well as his online display of various weapons and real-life extremist-related activities, and reported him to the FBI. The FBI themselves would arrest Paul in the spring of 2021, but we have one more thing to talk about before we reach the crescendo of his timeline. Atomwaffen. Atomwaffen are a far-right neo-Nazi international terrorist network. Now, despite sounding like a Rammstein song, they are a legitimate group. They are considered extreme even by other far-right groups. They advocate for attacks against the federal government, minorities, gays, Jews, and burn copies of the United States Constitution and flag. They have been held responsible for a number of murders, terrorist attacks, and other criminal acts. Now, one would think that they would be a big fan of Gypsy Crusader, but no, they weren't. In 2021, Gypsy went up against a member of Atomwaffen. Internet drama with a terrorist. I cannot make this up, guys. The Atomwaffen member harassed, threatened, DDoSed, and even called many takeout deliveries to his home as well as taxis. Even impersonated Paul's ex-girlfriend, and this is me quoting this incredibly badly written sentence. Days later, police received a call from a Canadian woman claiming her ex-boyfriend Miller passed out nude videos that she sent him to his friends. Police records show officers were unable to follow up with the caller. The reason as to why this Atomwaffen member took issue with Paul is not actually known for sure. Different sources say different things. Some say that it was Paul's Romani descent. Remember earlier when I mentioned purity tests? Yeah. Others state it was due to Paul giving them a bad rep, which I have to assume was based on Paul being nice to black children in Omegle videos, dressing up as the Joker and Riddler, and this is something that I had planned to leave out of this video, but I will briefly mention this, as I don't really have the sources to provide 100% proof to it. Many within the alt-right, many members of old websites such as IP2, similar to what Reddit is now, believe that Paul, they believe he was a informant. They thought that Paul glowed and glowed hard, this being based on Paul's dad having worked with the FBI in the past in some capacity. Anyway, now onto the final part of his timeline. Over the space of 3 years, Paul has lost his jobs, been doxxed, harassed, his family doxxed and harassed, and thus transformed into the monster you have witnessed throughout this video as I have shown clips. He has moved from one end of the country to the other, had his own personal beef with a terrorist, the ADL, BLM and Antifa. He has been banned from Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram and other socials. He is relegated now to Bitwave. And on March 2nd, 2021, at 6 AM, the police with FBI agents in tow raided Paul's Fort Lauderdale home, using the previous indictment from 3 years prior and the ADL's reporting to justify arresting him. Unfortunately for him, upon raiding his home, the police discovered that Paul was in possession of unregistered firearms, firearm parts and ammunition. On September the 28th, Paul Miller was sentenced to 41 months imprisonment, followed by 3 years supervised release. 2 months later, he was incarcerated in Atlanta, but later transferred between a few prisons, landing finally at FCI Fort Dix. A prison named Fort Dix, the irony. This is the end of the timeline, but there are a few things I need to add in here. His court hearing via Zoom was interrupted by Paul's personal troll, JDanks, a YouTuber who is still active now. Here's the clip.
Putting that on the screen.
This is, I don't know what's going on.
Karen, is there some way you can
Yeah, there's an FBI person on the screen right now. FBI is dialed into this call, so we're aware of what's going on. I do see what's going on here.
I appreciate that, because there's no reason to have my client suffer this way. It's unacceptable.
Mr. Bot, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a person that I know who's online. His name is JDanks, and I just seen him twice pop up on the screen, sir. And he's a streamer. So I assume that people are trying to make a spectacle of me.
Mr. Miller, your lawyer and I have discussed the publicity in this case, and I'm going to ask the judge to remind folks who are on this call that it's unlawful to stream this proceeding.
I understand. I just don't want to be made into a spectacle, sir, any more than I already have.
You understand, Paul. The law, it will be followed in this case.
Right, and my family has suffered enough, everyone. I don't want to make anyone suffer anymore.
We appreciate that, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Bot.
And that's the end of his timeline. So let's now read through my personal interactions with Paul via the prison emailing system. So, as I have mentioned a few times throughout this video, I actually decided to try and make contact with Paul, ask him a few questions, see what he's been doing with his time behind bars and so on. But before I read our email exchange, please allow me a moment to explain as to why this video had to be created. Back in October 2021, I was recommended a video from mini-doc video creator Sunny V2. I've mentioned this before in this video. Gypsy Crusader's face filled the thumbnail, and the next thing I knew, I was engrossed and distracted from playing Far Cry 6 at the time. But because Sunny V2 does mini-docs, I was left wanting more. I wanted to know more about this character. After all, I had once been a YouTuber who existed within the political, social commentary sphere, and it kind of blew my mind that I had never heard of Gypsy Crusader before. So I took the video to my mod, we had a long discussion, sifted through the Omegle videos, and with all of my mods in tow, we sat and watched several creator-made documentaries, mini and longer form together. We all reached the exact same conclusion. Whilst there was no true defense of Paul, his criminal record, or some of his incredibly spicy things he said and promoted, this was worth telling his story properly. I felt that a proper job needed to be done here, as other creators spent, in my opinion, far too much time focusing on negatives, covering their own backsides from backlash, or just straight up misrepresenting his story altogether. As you can imagine, I did bombard Paul with a ton of questions over a period of time. I asked him if he had been in protective custody, I asked about his story, his opinions on the state of America, and how he felt after his interactions with the ADL, and so on. This is how he answered.
Yes, it's not a very happy Thanksgiving, but I'm alright, trying to be strong. Happy Thanksgiving to you, dear friend. I hope that you're doing great with your family. I will try to answer some of your questions. It's a lot to type. I wish there was a way I could call and have time to explain, but I only get 15-minute calls. My youth was very good. My family was wonderful. My mom and dad gave me all I could ever ask for. They were great parents. I loved them dearly. They made me into the man I am today. My first bump with law enforcement was my own fault. I got involved with some stupid people in the streets. My first charge was assault with a damn BB gun. It was a total accident. Me and some friends were shooting it, and some of the BBs went out an open window. The cops came. All my friends left me holding the bag. So when I was dealing with that, the stress of being threatened with going to prison led to my drugs. I started smoking weed because of the stress. I was 18 when I started smoking weed. Eventually, after I was put on probation for the assault charge, I started to sell weed like a moron. I'm not proud of any of this. I'm deeply ashamed, but I was young and stupid. Later on, I got caught selling weed. I stood in the county jail for a while and put back on probation. That was 15 years ago. Since that point, I turned my life around. I found Muay that I started to train and fight. I became a 2-time champion, left the drugs alone, never got into trouble again. I got into a car accident that ended my fighting career. That's how I fell into journalism. I wrote all about it in this book I made about my life. I wrote it in here. I plan to publish it when I get home. I've spoken about what happened at the Proud Boys event in detail online already, so I won't bore you with all of that. Also, I don't have much time to type it all. But if you do some research, I'm sure you'll find my story on it, even the interview I did with OAN, One American News. The spiral happened when, after the Proud Boys event, I was harassed, threatened, and shamed for my political views. I had lost everything. I was labeled racist. I left journalism then. I was harassed at my normal job and fired. Then BLM harassed and threatened my family, even coming to protest outside my mother's business, demanding she say BLM. They did that because I went to the riots to cover the destruction they caused. Finally, BLM and Antifa threatened my gym I fought out of for 8 years. My trainer, who I loved dearly, threw me out because BLM threatened to come to the gym and protest. I wish I could go into more detail, but my time is short and a lot to type. I decided to do the Joker because after everything that happened to me, my views changed. I started to see the world for what it truly is. We are all just one bad day from being just like me. A friend of mine who knew my story told me, "Your story's like the Joker in the new movie that had come out, a man who was abandoned by society." I felt like I had changed in such a way that the Joker was the only character who made sense in this insane world we live in today. He's part of me now and always will be. The YouTube idea came to me because I watched Catboy Cammy. Even though we are no longer friends, I will give credit where it's due. When I see what he was doing, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought to myself, not only could I do this, but I could do it better and have a real story to tell people. So a friend got me the Joker costume. I was almost homeless at this point because I couldn't work from being fired and being thrown out of the gym because of BLM and Antifa. I learned to do the makeup and the voice and set myself to work. I had no idea people would be so taken with it. I thought I was alone in the world. That's how the media makes you feel anyways. But there's so many people who believe as I do, but they're too scared to say it out loud for obvious reasons, like what happened to me. But I had nothing to lose anymore, and a man with nothing to lose is dangerous. I wasn't aware the ADL was working with the FBI to have me arrested. I thought they were just writing slander about me and mostly took it as a good sign that what I was doing was helping and getting noticed. What I was trying to accomplish was to bring awareness to people, to make people understand that what happened to me can happen to anyone. All you have to do is say the wrong thing or believe counter to what the media tells us to believe, what society tells us to believe. Forgive my spelling, I'm rushing to type all this. I was trying to bring people together, make them see the truth. I believe it worked, and I hope to get back to it all very soon. That's okay if you don't agree 100%. Even people who think like me don't agree on everything. But at least you're willing to try and understand. I don't understand black pill so much. It means that there's no hope at all. But I have hope in people that we will wake up and take our country and our freedoms back very soon. We do have freedom of speech here. If we didn't, I wouldn't even be able to write this email to you. But it is being attacked all the time, and my case is clear proof of that. People like me, and even you, will be hunted down for what we say, for our dissent. The ADL wants to shame and scare anybody that dares to think differently. It's a communistic tactic. It's sickening, yes. What they did to me was unwarranted, but I was being effective, so they had to stop me somehow. But it backfired, I think, because when I come home, my voice will carry more weight. No, I'm not in any protective custody. No one knows who I am. When I was in Florida, some inmates knew, but now I'm in prison and it's a big place, so a lot of faces. No one knows, and I'm very safe. I'm more than capable of handling myself if I have to, but I don't wish to fight. I want to go home. I have much more to add, but again, I'm limited to what I can say for now. Hopefully when I come home, we can do a real interview for your channel. Please do my justice, and just tell people what I have told you here in these emails. Thank you so much for reaching out. I have a lot to say, but not much time to say it. God bless you, Alex. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much to Ranting Monkey for voicing Paul Miller for his emails. His link will be down below. Please, guys, go check him out. He live streams basically every day, sometimes twice a day. So go along to his channel, give him a sub. He's a good lad. Now, despite how you may feel about Paul, whether you want to take his word on his beliefs or his past actions, I do want to say thank you to him for speaking to me, as he had no clue who I was, and I could be anyone. Some ultra left-leaning loon or something or other. For those of you who are genuine legit fans of Paul, I have already passed on your love to him. And now, to summarize. And that is the story of Gypsy Crusader, the story of how one bad day can devolve into the descent of madness. Or in this case, some of the worst cases of internet drama expanding and extending out to the real world. A tragic story of radicalization, a tale of a young man who had cleaned up his act, tried to make it in real life the legitimate way, and found himself cosplaying the 2019 variation of the Joker, the same Joker that had been memed the hell out of and even taken by a small percentage of loony incels co-opted to represent their grim black-pilled lives. And as he fulfilled the real-life right-wing Riddler or right-wing Joker, he fell into further misanthropy, extremism, and found himself crossing the boundaries of the law after having been harassed relentlessly by not only Antifa and BLM, but profiled by the ADL and taken on head-to-head with a terrorist from Atomwaffen. But even though he may reside behind bars, Paul does seem to remain optimistic about his future. He is even writing a book. Whether he returns to the internet, however, and whether he can actually remain on the mainstream platforms is left to interpretation. I made it very clear to Paul that I wanted to represent him in a video, but do so in a neutral manner. Criticisms and opinions of him I leave to you watching. So, as I always do at the end of these videos, let me ask you, what are your thoughts? Do you think Paul has receded his views back to the standard vanilla conservative that he once was? Or do you think once fallen, always fallen? Or are you fixed on despising the man who became Gypsy Crusader? Let me know down below. And that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you if you got this far into the video. Thank you in particular if you chose to not screech at me in the comments and saw this for what it was, a neutral, true telling of a story that hadn't been told in full, and without bias. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, share it around, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, guys. Peace.